Hey guys, it's Karen McLaughlin, certified personal trainer, coming at you yet again on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern with my weekly broadcast. This week I'm going to be talking about sitting and why we might want to do less of that. Now, I can see some of you rolling your eyes already. Most people have heard sitting is the new smoking or something to that effect. And I don't actually agree that that's quite true, but the truth is that the amount of sitting that we're doing is quite harmful to us in a variety of ways. Basically, the reason that sitting is so bad is because we do so much of it. It's not that sitting in and of itself is such a horrible thing to do. It's that we're sitting and sitting in chairs in particular way too much of our day. If you stop and think about it and really start to add up how much time you're spending sitting in a chair, you'll probably be shocked to find out just how much time it is. Think about it. You get up, you sit down to have breakfast, hopefully at least stand up in the shower, but you're sitting in the car on the way to work, you're sitting at your desk all day, you probably sit to eat lunch, you sit to drive home, you sit at the table to have dinner, you sit at the computer and do some stuff on the computer after work, or you sit in front of the TV on the couch. So for a lot of people, unfortunately, it's a huge proportion of their day that they're sitting. And so that's really what the problem is. We're just spending upwards, some people, more than 80% of their waking hours, they're spending sitting. And the human body was just not designed for that. The human body was designed to move. We were meant to move a lot and change position frequently throughout the day. If we think back to our good old hunter-gatherer ancestors, they were moving 8+ hours a day because they were hunting and gathering. So they were walking, they were stooping, they were stretching, squatting, hanging, climbing trees. They were doing all kinds of things. And they weren't doing any one particular thing for a super long amount of time. They probably spent a fair amount of time walking, but they would have interrupted the walking with lots of other movements. So that's really the central idea here is around sitting, is it's just not good for us to assume one posture and keep that for so much of our day. Because what happens is our body decides, oh, Karen's sitting for 17 hours a day. That must be a really important body position for her, so we're going to make her body optimized for sitting. And the reason that's bad is because what happens is it's like your hamstrings, the muscles in the back of your legs get shortened, and then they get really tight. We're sitting on them all day, so they get weak. And the same thing with the glutes, the butt muscles, they just pretty much turn off. So what ends up happening is when we go to do other forms of movement, those muscles are way suboptimal in their function. And so then when we're doing things like running or cycling or group exercise class or whatever, CrossFit, those muscles aren't able to do what they should be doing, and so then other muscles and body parts are taking over, and that's what sets us up for so much injury risk. And it can be subtle, like you can get an acute injury where you know right away that you've done it, but a lot of the time what happens is we just have these very slow chronic things that happen, and it creeps up on us, and then till one day we start to notice, oh my goodness, my hip's out of whack, my lower back's killing me, I have this problem with my neck or my shoulder, and it seems like it happened suddenly, but it was really building up over a long time. So sitting's not the only thing that's going to contribute to that, but sitting is something that we can change pretty easily. And so what I hope you're going to take away from this is not just I should stand more and sit less, because that's not the message I want to get, and I think that's the message that's gotten out in the media. Standing desks are a big thing now, and they're great. I have one. I'm going to show it, hopefully show it to you in a minute if I can get it to work. But it's not going from one, sitting for too long is bad, standing for too long is bad. We know people who work in jobs where they stand all day, they have repetitive strain types of injuries too. So please get the message that it's not switching all from one thing to all to another thing. It's dynamic movement throughout the day, but breaking or decreasing your sitting time is one of the great ways to start moving more and starting to wake up some of those muscles that aren't working so good because you have been sitting. The other thing that's bad about sitting is that most of us do it so poorly, and I'm going to try and show you guys. I don't know if I can hold the phone out this far, and I don't know that you can hear it beeping at me or not. So when most of us sit in the chair, we kind of do a really bad slumped over, pelvis forward, hunched shoulders. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but this is what a lot of us do, and then we probably do something weird with our legs. We wrap our feet around our ankles, and this is just messing everything up pretty much in a nutshell. It's terrible for your back, for sure, and then it's just going to throw everything else out of whack. So first what I'd like you to do is, when you are going to sit, I'm messing around with this angle, hoping you guys can see this, but I want you to sit, so you're not going to sit right back against the back of the chair like this. You're going to come forward, so there's a few inches between you and the back of the chair, and then you're going to have your feet knees at 90, feet nicely planted on the ground, and then I'm having a hard time doing this in perfect posture while also aiming it so that you guys can see. But basically I want to be nice and straight at the hip, so I'm not leaning back and I'm not hunching forward. It's just a nice straight, and so you're sitting right on those things that we call our sit bones. That's why they're called sit bones. We're supposed to be sitting on them, so no tucking the tail under, okay? Women do this terribly, although a lot of men do it too. So sit on those sit bones. You have to stick your bum back just a little bit, okay? So if you're going to sit on a chair, this is kind of what I'd like it to look like, all right? So what are the alternatives? You've got to get your work done, right? I'm going to show you my standing workstation, I hope, if I can get a good view of it here. Give me or maybe not. Hang on. If I go back far enough, I can get it, I think. I hope you guys can see that at least a little bit. It might not be the best. I'm not good with the camera work, am I? Okay. Anyway, I'm hoping it's in the view there a little bit. So basically all I did here was I just had a chest, like a blanket box, that I found a shelf at the side of the curb, threw that on the top, and then I stacked a few books, and then I have my laptop on top of that. So it's by no means a very scientifically designed one, but I got it at the right height so that I can stand comfortably. Now it's still not optimal, because really, to be really ergonomically correct, I should have the keyboard a bit lower and the monitor a bit higher. So I've compromised and put it sort of in the middle. But it's you know, it cost me exactly zero to throw that together. And so I got myself going with a standing workstation really quickly without having to run out and buy a bunch of stuff and spend money. So over time, I'm going to finesse it. So just think about how you could do the same thing. Really, you just want to have somewhere where you can stand and use your computer. If you're somebody who uses a computer a lot, which most of us are. So just try and figure out how you can do that. If you Google standing workstations, there's tons of great ideas out there. I've seen some really neat ones where people take like those long, high chest of drawers and they adapt those into a standing workstation, and then they use the drawers for their storage. Really great idea. So that's one thing, but remember what I said. Please don't go from standing all day or from sitting all day to standing all day, because that's not good either. So the idea here is dynamic movement on creating dynamic workstations, so you can still be productive throughout your day and get your work done. So how do I do this? Another thing that I have here, and I'm hoping you can be able to see it. I'm not doing such a great job with this showing stuff off on the camera, but so I just have this little desk. Let's see. Little desk. So it's just like one of those little tiny benches that you see in antique stores a lot of the time. I think that's where mine came from originally. I'm trying to find a spot where there's not so much glare. So it's actually the perfect height for me to plonk my laptop down on and then sit on my meditation cushion, Exhibit B. I know you can't really see much of it, so that's my meditation cushion. I just plonk that down right in front, and yeah, now you can see my standing workstation better than you could before, I think. I'm capturing on the camera what I don't want. So there's my floor sitting workstation, so I'm going to turn around and sit on that. We're going to get a bit more glare on the camera. But this is how I'll alternate back and forth between my standing and my floor sitting workstation a lot of the day when I'm not actually training clients. Because I'm lucky that way that I have a job with built-in movement, which is admittedly a great bonus. But anybody really can find ways to sit less and move more throughout the day. So this little sitting workstation is great for the computer, or it's even just a little mini table. I'll often sit here if I'm going to write out my grocery list or any of those types of little things. And the nice thing about floor sitting and why it's much better than sitting in a chair is, number one, you can't hold any one position too long when you're floor sitting, because it starts to get uncomfortable. So usually after about 10 minutes, I need to change positions. And that's great because you're getting an automatic feedback loop. We're too comfortable in our chair. And the other thing I hope you noticed about that chair that I meant to mention is a very plain chair. It's not a fancy pants, ergonomically designed with all kinds of cushiony stuff chair. The best chair to sit in really is just a solid, really nice square 90-degree angles, plain chair, because then you can get that great posture that I tried to show you, and I hope you could see that a little bit. It's so hard to tell when I'm trying to show you and look on the phone screen. Anyway, the fancy chairs really are less helpful than just an inexpensive plain wooden chair. So you can actually sit better on that. But because it's harder, and if you're sitting the way I showed you where you're supporting yourself and you're not letting the back of the chair support you, you're going to get uncomfortable quicker and you're going to want to shift your position. So that's the nice thing about floor sitting, is you really will shift your position a lot more. So right now I'm sitting with my legs crossed, but often I will switch to, I'm not even going to try and switch the camera because I know I'm not going to get this. You can switch to your legs sitting out like straight in a V. So I just did that. I don't think I can. Well, maybe. There you go. My legs are out in a V. And that's definitely much easier. Like, this is why I use my meditation cushion, because it's still hard for me to sit right on the ground. I do it sometimes, but it'll be uncomfortable really quick, even when I'm sitting on my yoga mat. So I'm using a meditation cushion. It's just getting me a few inches off the ground and giving me a little bit of cushioning. It's got buckwheat in it, so it's kind of nice that way. So I can switch between those two sitting postures, and now I'm sitting with my knees tucked right behind me. And that's some of you will know that is like hero pose from yoga. So there's lots of different ways. I mean, you can sit with, sometimes I have my legs doing different things. So now I've got one knee up and the other one still down. There's like a million different ways that you can sit, which is great because you're constantly moving. And I noticed that even in some of my other videos when I'm floor sitting, I don't even realize it, but I'm rocking back and forth a little bit. But it's just your body, when you're sitting like this, it naturally sort of encourages you to move a little bit more. So any way you can get yourself to do that is great. So thinking about your day, how can I sit less? Meal time is still, a fair time to sit at the table. Unless you want to get really advanced. I know some people have like totally sawn off their family dining room table so they're lower to the ground and they sit on the floor and they eat at their table. And I know most of you are not ready to do that. My husband's like, there's no way we're touching our, it's like an antique table. He doesn't want to cut it off. But we do have a large coffee table that is actually the right height for floor sitting. So I keep saying, no, we could use that instead. He's not quite sold on it. So if you still want to sit at your dining room table or your kitchen table and eat with your family, I totally respect that. Just try to sit a little better, pay attention, and not sit for so long. If you're going to start like just talking or stuff and you're done actually eating, maybe you can get up and move around and do stuff while you're just socializing with your family. But driving, is there any way you can not do something else instead of drive? I know for some of you the answer is no, but one of the nice things about using public transit is that in a lot of cases you can get off earlier than your stop and then walk the rest of the way. And that's a great way to get some less sitting and more walking into your day. I actually often will stand when I'm taking the city bus. Half the time there's no place to sit anyway. So on a lot of buses you are allowed to stand, and so if you are taking the kind of bus where you can stand, then you can stand while you're riding the bus. But you can also get off a few stops earlier and walk the rest of the way. If you're really stuck driving, try to be creative. Most people can figure out something to do with their commute where they can add some kind of movement in at the beginning or the end or somewhere in there. I know it can be a tricky thing, but you're smart, you're creative. I know you can figure something out if you're determined to. At the office, if you're lucky enough to have a private office or semi-private office and you can set up standing workstation and a floor sitting station, I'm lucky enough that I'm working at home so I can do that. If you're the kind of person who doesn't mind being the first to do something, you can lead the way for your office to get started doing some of this stuff, and you'll all be a lot healthier. But if you can't, just figure out some ways that you can add more in. Like if you have to talk on the phone, if that's a significant part of your workday, can you batch your calls and make a lot of phone calls at one time and stand up while you're doing them? Or if you're able to do it on your cell phone, can you actually go outside and walk for a bit? Depending, I know not everybody's job allows them to do that, but I'm throwing this out there if it's possible. If people don't care where you're doing your work as much as that you're doing it, I do know some people who will, have all their calls in a list and they'll just go outside for a walk for 20 or 30 or 40 minutes and they'll make all their calls while they're walking, and that can be a great way to get some more movement in there. Um, taking just little breaks, like every time you feel like, oh, I've been, when I'm floor sitting and I'm thinking, oh, I've been down here for too long, so now it's time for me to get up and do something else. So when I'm transitioning back to my standing workstation, I might take some time to do just a little bit of extra movement, whether that's raising my arms over my head in some way, whether that's squatting down to the ground, whether that's, doing a bit of other shoulder mobility work, just adding in a few different things. The stimulus to shift from one posture to another is really great for triggering you to do other movements as well. So that's another nice thing about sitting less, is it automatically triggers you to think about doing other types of movement as well. So we've covered breakfast, our commute, and our first part of our workday. Lunch hour is a game, that's the time when most people, if they're going to move throughout their day, they think of doing it at their lunch break. So I used to work with lots of people who would go running on their lunch break or that kind of thing. And I hate running. But walking is awesome. So try to get outside, challenge yourself to get outside even in the less appealing weather, because it's good for you. It really is good for you. And I know I'm like so tired we've had a little bit of a warm snap here lately, and it's been so nice not to spend 15 minutes bundling myself up in my big scarf and my parka and my winter boots and all that stuff. But when it's really wintry, I still try to do that. It's so important to get outside. So that's the way you can, even if you eat lunch with your coworkers, maybe you guys can just spend a few minutes actually eating, and then hopefully you'll have coworkers that are game to go out with you walking, because it's more fun when you can get people to join you. And it's easier because if you get a group buying into it, then you're all going to support each other in doing it. If you're the only one, then they'll be like, oh, come on, don't bother, just hang out with us and talk. So yeah, try to work your colleagues into adopting some of this stuff with you. It'll be a lot easier. But definitely, there's no reason why you should be sitting your entire lunch break, because you should not be working through your whole lunch break either. I don't want to hear about that. I used to do it too, but you should take a break, both for mental and physical reasons. So the rest of your day, basically, the same types of things we've already talked about. So if you figured out your commute, how you can add less sitting on the way there, then obviously you can do that on the way back. And your free time in the evening is, of course, really key time when you could be moving instead of sitting as well. So if you've got a family, you want to get them involved too. So I know when I had young kids, we were going to the park every night after dinner. So you get that built-in extra movement, whether you wanted it or not. You had to take the kids to the park. But for those of you who either don't have any kids yet, or your kids are like mine, are grown up, we need to kind of get ourselves to move more in the evening instead of succumbing to the temptation of flopping on the couch. Because I know, you had a long day, you're tired, you finally got dinner cooked and cleaned up and everything's put away, and now you just want to relax. They've actually found, though, that people who, we all feel that way, but they've actually found that the people who actually make themselves go out and do something in the evening versus flopping on the couch actually do feel a lot better. There's quite a bit of research to support that. So it's just getting yourself to do it. But the good news is, if you've built that habit of sitting less and moving more throughout the entire rest of your day, it'll carry through into the evening. It really will. So it's just, don't go from 0 to 100 on this. I'm going to link up when I'm done here, just a little sitting checklist. You don't really need it. You can kind of do it in your habit. It just gives you mostly what I've already listed. It makes you think, though, oh my goodness, because before I really got into this stuff, I never had thought about it. I thought, oh yeah, I work out every day, so that's good enough. And I never thought about all the time I was sitting for the entire rest of the day. And it's not good. It's really not. So once you go through the checklist and if you discover like, oh my goodness, I'm sitting 15 hours a day, like you're gonna feel a little not great about that. But don't be discouraged, because that's where you're at now, and so there's a lot of room to improve. So don't try to get down from 15 to 1, on overnight, because your body is gonna fight you on that. But just, can you go down by an hour a day every week? So this week from 15 to 14, the next week 14 to 13, and gradually cut it down. And as you start exploring the ways that you can sit less and move more, it becomes fun. I know you're like, really? But you become so much more energized, and you become so much more aware of your body. Because the thing about just sitting in that chair all day is we really just got desensitized, and we're sitting there, we're all slumped over, we're in this terrible posture, and we're like that for hours, and we don't notice until our body starts like literally screaming at us with pain in our back or our neck or our head. When you are sitting less in your, at least chair sitting less, and if you're floor sitting like I'm right now, I'm like, yeah, my legs are starting to go to sleep because I've held one pose for too long, so now it's time for me to move my legs a bit. It just brings more awareness. And the more aware you are, then it creates, I heard this expression, virtuous cycle, as the opposite of a vicious cycle, and I really like that. So it creates a virtuous cycle of you being more tuned in to what's going on with your body, more aware of how you're holding yourself in space, more aware of what parts are not happy at any given moment in time, and it triggers more movement, because now you're like, yeah, I've been sitting on the floor and now my butt's asleep and my calves are numb or whatever, depending what position you've been sitting on. So move into another position. That's what your body's telling you. We're not meant to hold any one particular position for all that long. We were designed to move. And so that's the big takeaway. That's the big takeaway of most everything I say. We were designed to move more and in lots of different ways, not just one or two different ways. I think that's pretty much all I had in mind to say to you about sitting today. It's really not that complicated, but I just want to plant the seeds in your head of how it's, because the mental block is we're used to thinking of, if we're going to work, if we're serious and we're productive, we're sitting in a chair at a desk. For most of us, that's how we think we need to be to actually get things done. So I'm just trying to plant that seed for you. You don't need to sit anywhere near as much as you are. And hopefully you can just start thinking, what are some ways I can sit less? What are some ways how can I do the things I need to do in other ways? I guess the other thing I wanted to specifically mention that I didn't, in terms of thriving, is that we've really gotten very lazy as a whole, and most of us do most of our errands and our kid shuffling and all that kind of stuff via driving. And so I want to challenge you guys, can you get out of that? Because you can't, some people's lives are set up much better for this than others, and I will admit that. We are very, very lucky that we live in this amazing neighborhood that was one of the first planned communities in Canada, so it's very old. Our house is 91 years old, but it's very, very walkable. And we actually didn't even have a car for 3 years when our kids were quite young, and so we had bike trailers and fancy trailer bike things and that we pulled them around on. And so we didn't drive hard. We rented a car a few times in those 3 years, but we practically never drove. So I'm not saying that's possible for everyone. We are very lucky that we were set up in a way that we could do that with the way our life was working at the time. But almost everybody can drive a lot less than they are. So think, if you really can't do anything, is there absolutely no other way for you to get to work with driving? Okay, but you got to promise me that you're really going to think about that there is no possibility for adding some type of change to your commute where you could get a little walking in, because for most people they could do that. But I understand sometimes it might not be possible, but in terms of running errands and getting your kids around, I bet if you're creative, you can think of a lot of ways, because I think the statistic is that most car trips are like less than 2 kilometers or something like that. It's very short. It's definitely short enough for walking. Guys, I walk like if it's half an hour or less, I'm automatically walking there. And usually between even half an hour and an hour, I'm still on foot. I'm walking there. Like, if I can get there in under an hour by walking, pretty much I will. Or sometimes I'll ride my bike, but I like to, the bike gets me there too fast for a lot of trips. So, because it's important to actually get quite a bit of walking in. It's good for everybody. Even the people who run, you still need to walk every day. Walking does good stuff for us that other forms of exercise don't. So there's a key piece that you can look at for sitting less and moving more, is all those errands. Of course, you might not be able to do every errand on foot. I'm lucky in that I can virtually do almost all of mine, except for if I'm picking up something really heavy and it would require me to carry it a few kilometers, I draw the line there. But groceries, most of our like basic errands, I do them on foot. So really think about that piece of your life too. And I know you're like, oh, but I don't have time to walk. Well, you're getting in movement too. Remember, this is not just, think of it as more for your money. You're not just doing the errand, you're getting a lot of movement into. There's huge health benefits. And we just need to slow down a little bit more. If your life is that jam-packed, you don't have time to do a little bit of walking, I'm going to challenge you to try and ditch a few activities from your life too. Because that's the other problem, is that we're so crammed full, our schedules. Like, we think, I don't have time to walk anywhere. I gotta drive. So just think about it. I know I can hear you, like, I don't have time. Try a little bit. Just once a week, just start. But really, if it's less than 1 kilometer, I really want you to walk. But less than 2. I mean, I can hear you saying, I've got little kids. You know what? The best thing we ever did was get our little kids to start walking when they were really, 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 when our kids were toddlers, they could walk really far because we got them to do it. We weren't pushing them around in the stroller all the time. And, well, then if they get tired, then you pick them up and carry them, and then you get a workout. That's strength training. That's major upper body work. So lots and lots and lots of ways that we can decrease our sitting. I really am amazed at how quickly I was able to switch from sitting a lot of hours a day to sitting very few. On a typical day, I'm sitting in a chair like less than 2 hours, I think. I haven't checked in with it lately, but it's very little because it's not my default anymore. It's my last resort. And yes, I'm still eating at the dining room table sometimes, but I'm at the stage of life where, unfortunately, a lot of my family members are not home at this. Like, I got 2 teenage boys, and they both work. My husband's a realtor; he works crazy hours, and I can have clients at all kinds of weird times. So we unfortunately do not converge on the homestead at the same time all that often, which means that we don't get a lot of family meals together anymore, which I know it sucks, but we did a ton of them when the kids were little. So what I'm trying to say is, if we're eating as a family, I will sit at the table and eat, or if there's, more than just me here, but if I'm eating by myself, I might kind of just have my plate and wander around the house, or I might even do some work on the computer, but don't tell anybody. I know I'm supposed to be eating mindfully, right? But I don't overeat, so it's okay, right? Anyway, my point is just rethink stuff, be creative, go have fun with this. Like, it is actually really fun, and like I love sitting on the floor now. And it's, most people think, oh, that's so weird, but it's actually more comfortable. I love it. I love shifting positions. And you know what the other bonus is? You're getting yourself up and down and up and down and up and down. So you're working on stuff like balance and core strength every time you're getting up and down off the floor. When you're sitting on the floor, there's nothing, you don't have a chair or anything to support you, so of course you're using your core more there too. Alright, so I kind of threw a bunch of random stuff at you in a little bit more of a haphazard manner than I usually do, I think. But I hope I've got you sold on this, because it'll really start to change your life in a lot of ways. Like, it really will. And your body's going to start to feel better. It's going to make your joints so much happier. And it's one of those things that it just feels like it's a domino effect kind of thing. Once you start sitting less and moving more in all these different ways, it's probably going to snowball into a bunch of other really cool directions as well. Okay, so that's enough out of me for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you back here next week, Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And until then, any questions or comments, either leave them for me below the video. You can private message me if you want, or you can email me at yourfitnessgroove@gmail.com. I'm going to link up that sitting checklist at the bottom when we're done, and I think that's it. But I do want to encourage you guys, if you have questions about stuff and topics you want me to cover for this little weekly broadcast, if there's anything that I can help you with, I really would love to hear what it is, because I'm always like making this stuff up that I think, oh, this is important, I want to talk to people about this, but I want to know what you're struggling with in terms of healthy moving, healthy eating, and all that kind of stuff. So let me know what topics you'd like to see me cover, okay? And I'll try to get it done in future broadcasts. All right, have a great week, guys, and I will see you next time.